we have people do all kinds of crazy things to get customers taken care of. And I know a lady was in the checkout line at Walmart and her debit card wouldn't work one day, and a lady that runs our debit card department got the cash out of her account for her with the customer's permission, of course, and drove that to Walmart and delivered it to the customer. I mean, we just do whatever it takes to get the customer taken care of, and I think that's unique in today's banking environment.
Let's turn that machine on and get this meeting on. We got a lot stuck out there.
We've got quite a bit to cover, Mayor. Thank you. We will begin, actually it's item number 3 there on your work session, item A agenda. Looking at the review side of the budgets for 3 of your component units. Today we have with us Buzz David, Amarillo Economic Development Corporation. I believe Michelle's going to represent the hospital district in the review of their budget, and then they will be here when you consider such budget. Mr. President, Gary Pittner is here from the Amarillo Local Government Corporation, and you'll love their budget. It's got to be the best one we've done all year. Short and sweet. Of course, Commissioner Sims, Commissioner Eads have both seen that budget. And
we were the budget committee.
They were the budget committee.
That's a good budget. We have no control over really.
So what we'd like to do is we'll ask Michelle to go ahead and come on up, and Buzz as well. I presume, Buzz, are you doing your budget?
Yes.
Each of said budgets were attached to your memo this week, so you should have one.
It looks like this. Hard to keep track of all the screens that you stacks.
Welcome, Mr. David.
Thank you, sir. How are y'all?
Great.
How are you?
Good. Good. You ready for me? All right. Let me just start at the 30,000 plus foot level and give you the really good news is that, as you probably already know, sales tax revenues are in great shape. Not only at the city level, but at the Economic Development Corporation level. Looking at 2013, 2014, we're anticipating a little bit more than $17 million in sales tax revenue.
Wow.
The projected budget is $17,149 and change. If you start with that as a base revenue and then work through our expense side, and this is just sort of an income expense recap for you. Our budget, our operating budget, which is the administrative, promotional, and project support, comes in at about $2,835,000. We've got about $4.75 million in debt service on a bond issue. Total expenses $7,587,000 and change, which leaves a net to our project fund, which is where the bulk of our funds usually go for doing whatever we can do to bring jobs and infrastructure, or investment to the community. Puts about $9.5 million in. We don't, and you don't have that. I just did a little recap for you. That adds to cash available in the bank, and it gives us a pretty healthy operating fund. But if you can do any one really good project, it eats it up pretty quickly. You have a summary document, and what that does is compare 2012-13 fiscal year to the 2013-14 fiscal year. Starting at the top, administrative, which is personnel, benefits, and operations. We're looking at a budget request that's about $31,000 over the budget, right under 3% for potential for pay increase and so forth for employees, whether that's distributed or not, I mean, another question. Operations, we come in with exactly the same number as this past fiscal year, because we think we can work within that every year. Promotional, the same, between marketing and prospect development, and I think I told you before, that kind of goes back and forth, because everything we do is marketing and everything we do is prospect development, so sometimes we do a better job than others in assigning those dollars. But that total cost is about $490,000. You do a total admin and promotional budget of $1,830,294, which, as I said, is about $31,000 above the FY 12-13 budget. And I'd be happy to go back and go through any amount of these details, but I want to give you the big picture first.
I appreciate the fact that you kept it basically flat.
Excuse me?
I appreciate the fact you kept it basically flat.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, and, you know, we have a generous budget, and we can do lots of good things within it, and biggest thing is just making sure we keep our people.
Buzz, can
Yes.
you answer a couple questions?
Sure.
What's the percentage pay increase if your people get this pay increase?
I budgeted 3%.
Okay. And then one other thing, does marketing in there, where's the travel? Is that in marketing?
The bulk of travel for trade missions, for recruitment missions, so it's all part of the marketing budget.
Okay. Is it listed? Yeah, where is it?
It's under operations.
Okay, oh, okay, thank you.
There's a little bit of travel in operations, and that is things like the Texas Economic Development Council, some things where we would go for organizational meetings and so forth. But most of the travel, if you go back to prospect development, under recruitment missions and where am I looking here? The market development, lead generation, that's got travel in all parts of that, depending on where we're going to do what we're doing.
Okay,
That's on that third page.
yeah. Okay.
The area that seems to usually have conversation about it is the area that we classify as project support. And within that is where, and that's the very last part of the budget page, second page. We put the dollars in there for the enterprise challenge, which is $500,000 again for this year. $100,000 is what we paid the West Texas A&M Enterprise Network for administering the challenge for us. Next is the Pantex RA government relations contracts that we have in Austin and Washington. Every year, as I say, and our board asks the same question, do we need that? Do we want that? And the answer is always, we have contracts that are annual, that are 30-day cancellations. If we have work that you all need for those folks to do, Randy Urban in Austin and Kyle in Washington, they're looking for more things for us to ask them to do for them. If we don't have things for them to do, or we have other support in Austin, for example, they would understand completely if we said, okay, thank you, and we're going to move on.
How viable is Forced Plains in the last 12 months?
Well, you know,
It's important to us, but how?
it is, and Forced Plains is a kind of a unique animal, headquartered in Lubbock. Two largest contributors to it are Lubbock and Amarillo, and it's really because of the juxtaposition between the two cities with I-27 in the middle. And from a lot of people's perspective, supports the Plains corridor that is worked on over the years is complete because we have I-27, we've got 287, 87 coming out of here. We're always looking for new ideas and new opportunities for expanding the loop and things of that nature. But of course, the Plains' success will come in how well it connects all the way to Laredo in the south and all the way to Canada and north. And Ports of Plains works in connection and cooperation with the Theodore Roosevelt Expressway, which is further north, and the what's the other corridor in Denver? I'm blanking on it right this second.
25.
Well, but there's a name of, there's another organization.
Oh, yeah.
Ports of
Yeah, I
Plains.
know.
Heartland Expressway, excuse me. And then actually, we've done a lot of work, as I sit on the board on your behalf, with the Chief in Alberta, because of the opportunity for products, in particular oil field services products, being made in Texas to be transported to there, to North Dakota, somewhere. They have none of the infrastructure to support what they need to be able to get the oil and the oil sands and oil shale and all those sorts of things mined and into the marketplace. So the connectivity, and Ports of Plains staff, Michael Reeves, spends a lot of time in Washington, working with our legislative, and then in Washington with our congressional folks, with some of the US DOT and TxDOT people, of course. But, it is an organization that's there to advocate and educate. And sometimes we feel like we get the least advocacy and education locally because we've got so much good gone on here already over the years. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Well, it does, and Mayor, if I could add just a little bit to it, the Ports to Plains group was supportive and did help us as we worked on moving the Proposition 12 money to Amarillo to work on the southeast loop, because some of the Prop 12 money that we have up here actually was assigned to 2 other locations originally, so you have seen some benefit.
Well, and of course, the Plains structure is dues based on population in the communities that they serve and up and down the corridor. Again, Amarillo and Lubbock being the 2 largest, that's why the dollars are that level, $115,000. Lubbock's are higher because they have a larger population. And we really do probably make up 60–70% of their total operating budget to communities. And in this case, the agencies paying the cities.
If they could focus in the future by any possibilities for more funds towards our loop development, it sure would be helpful. It's a long-term project. It's not a short-term thing. Their advocacy would help us a lot, I think.
You know, and I think if we ask for more communication, more conversation with them, more opportunities for them to be here, they would love to do it. The last time membership slot came up for Amarillo, you all asked me to go ahead and take that slot. It's time for that to happen again. So if one of y'all would be interested in serving that capacity, I think it would be an eye-opener for you. Certainly.
At one time, we had a city
Robert
commissioner,
Keyes.
Robert Keyes.
Yes, Commissioner Keyes was very involved and participated in a lot of different things. So it certainly won't hurt my feelings if this would like to serve.
Yeah, it ties in with what we did with MPO a lot. There's just no question.
Yeah, you know, in our part of the world, if nothing else, we need connectivity. We need the infrastructure, highway connection, railway connection, the air connection to the rest of the world if we're going to be successful as a community, and certainly from an economic development perspective. Back up just a little bit, in the prospect development side, there's a couple pretty good sized chunks here. One is the High Ground of Texas, which is our regional marketing coalition. You all probably all know Lori Vincent, who's the executive director. That program, from my perspective, having come from another part of the world, as a regional effort, collaborative effort, is one of the best, most effective I've ever seen. And once again, Amarillo, Lubbock, Golden Spread, and Xcel Energy are the 4 key foundation members of that organization. Total budget's not too much over $200,000 of dues, and you can generate other revenue through support and sponsorships. But we are, without us, it would be hard pressed to operate effectively. And it really does serve the surrounding communities well. You talk about sales tax revenue coming from people not from here. Those are the same people that we're helping support through our efforts to market this entire region as one entity through High Ground. The other, Texas One, I can tell you, I've been extremely impressed this past year, particularly participating in Texas One with the Governor's Office of Economic Development around the country, actually in some cases around the world. Ashton and Steve Pritchett are currently with that group in Toronto today. And between what the Governor's Office has set up and our own appointments we've made with companies in Canada, we'll have a really full trip for the next 2 or 3 days.
Is that a Perry invention, or is that just any governor's?
You know, it's probably more Perry than anything. Part of that's because Governor Perry is very outgoing and very active with the economic development world. That could change dramatically when there's a new governor elected, depending on that governor's attitude towards economic development and attitude towards promoting the state of Texas in general.
Wasn't it under the Texas One flag, which all made the trip to New York and California? Touting moves Texas, you'll love it.
Yes, California, New York, Connecticut,
Oh, okay.
the gun manufacturers. They're in Toronto this week. They've got other things. Texas One has its own board and is operated as a private corporation underneath the governor's office, but As a tier 2 member, we get to participate in all the important stuff.
Do they take money from the Texas Enterprise Fund? Is that how they get funded?
No, it's funded completely by dues. And there are a lot of corporate level members that are considerably higher at $50,000 or more, like AT&T and some of the companies like that. Primarily Austin headquartered companies for Florida, Texas. Put together, again, that's a cooperative, collaborative effort that if you choose to be a member and participate, you can get some of that. That's why we're involved with that. Other than that, what I would say under prospect development, there's a line item there that's kind of nondescript, says ROI. That is research on investment. That is the firm that we contract with for lead generation. They're in Toronto, and they are, in my opinion, the best at what they do in any organization like that I've ever worked with. They have a methodology that is far superior than any other organization. I brought something I wanted to share with you. This past year, on our behalf, ROI has contacted over 1,000 companies, surveyed over 680, identified 86 leads, we've had 24 one-on-one meetings with these corporate entities, and have 17 more this week, mostly in Toronto. So they will set up meetings with folks who have been surveyed and have indicated an interest, at least in Texas and potentially in Amarillo. And they have a way of doing it that a staff person at our level would never be able to accomplish. They don't have surveying, calling capabilities, so forth, or the experience. So they are a heck of a bang for a buck. It's better than a person.
Any interest from any gun manufacturers?
One of the gun manufacturers that we have been working with, the lead in contact with them, and our firm came directly from our alliance. And is probably one of the best ones on the planet.
Two basic questions. If, the Enterprise Challenge grants, I love that competition. Do they give away all $500,000 every year?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Usually they will, depending on how many finalists they have and how many they think are worthy of funding, 100,000 is the max. And this past year they had 4 receive 100 and 2 receive 50,000. And from a business plan competition perspective, for a community of any size to put that kind of money into building businesses from the ground on up, I think we stand head and shoulders above anyone.
They told me that they have like an 87% success rate with businesses that are fostered there, where nationally that's closer to 40 to 50%.
Yeah, it's almost exactly the opposite. Small business, success rate's pretty small.
Yeah.
But the companies that go through the challenge, whether they win a grant or not, they've gone through this rigorous process of evaluation of their business plan, coaching and everything like that. And even if they don't get a winning grant, they're light years ahead of where they were before they started the process, because they know a whole lot better about themselves, and they can certainly reapply, and some companies reapply year after year. So it's a very positive thing when you talk about the business creation side of the economic circle.
Well, that's the companies that need the most help and have the least affordability.
It's better than just handing out a small amount of cash and hoping they do well. This way, not only do they go through the process, they have to demonstrate their capabilities in their business plan and win, but then they're required to go through 12 months of coaching afterwards with the Enterprise Center, which helps keep them on path. I won't bore you with reading it much tonight, but this is a list of the outreach efforts we've done this past year, except for the last couple, several here, because it's the rest of the year. But, working with Texas One, with Team Texas, with things like the Heli Expo, the IMC Spring Show, all the different trade shows and co-working events with either Texas One, Team Texas, or the High Ground of Texas, and then some of the large organizations that we deal with on a regular basis, where there are site selectors and people that make decisions on corporate locations. But if we're really 3.5 people doing it on an annual basis, it's like, ought to go. And that's what we spend money on.
How many full-time employees do you have?
Well, in the economic development side specifically, we have 5.5, and then we have 2.5 in the TPRDC, the Regional Development Corporation, 2 that are full-time dedicated employees, and then we split Doug in half.
I was gonna say that half and half
We
makes
pay,
a whole.
The short
TPRDC pays half, and we
Shorter
pay,
than me,
Yeah.
2 of them.
yeah.
and they do the loan processing and loan evaluation and all those kind of things. And they reimburse us directly for all those costs. Anything at the top of the first page of the budget that you see, this is TPRDC, there's a asterisk there. Those amounts are, let's see, payroll and benefits, it's about 175,000 plus some other dollars back in the operating side, they pay us. Some good.
Good work.
Happy to answer any other questions.
Appreciate all you do.
Keep them coming.
Does that portion of plans, you know, some maps have a split out, one going through Dalhart and one not going through Dalhart? One goes to Dalhart, goes to Rathbone?
Yeah, one is,
Which one is the real portion of plans?
they all are.
They all are.
It's really not gonna ever be just one road, it's gonna be a combination of the access points going through, sometimes around communities.
It peaks it and it ends at Denver. It takes out 25 all the
And
way.
anything that they can do to advocate to get better road miles down, whether it's bigger or wider or improved or whatever, helps the traffic flow. And ultimately, the goal is to try to provide an alternate route from the ports in Mexico and South Texas and so forth to their destinations in the U.S. without having to go all the way east and go to I-35, which is
You know, we've got access problems here with the loop, but boy, there's much bigger access problems than that. You know, Dalhart has a main bridge with an access point that every time you try to drive under it, you knock off the top row of hay bales.
Yes, sir.
So
And
that's-
that's actually in a funded project,
Yeah.
next year, year after.
They fixed the Stratford deal. You don't have to take the loop through downtown Stratford anymore. It is a circle. They fixed that.
Okay.
But there's a lot more 4 lanes to come up there in the future to get to I-70 in there.
I-25 looks like I-35 now, so far.
And 25 is, you know, going into Colorado is the corridor kind of splits, because you go over and you go up through the pass and you go up to Denver. There's other ways to get around that need improvements too and all that. And the irony is with the Heartland Expressway that really runs through there, which is just another Ports to Plains goes on. The state of Colorado and folks in Denver are in the least cooperative of all.
the least cost.
It's just unbelievable.
Colorado.
Well, it takes them away from that corridor. I mean, you get to I-70 if you go north out of Stratford, and you miss everything. You miss Denver if you want to. So they're,
Oh, I was at a meeting, and I'll check that, in Lyman, Colorado, where one of the Ports of Plains part-time staff, Joe Kylie, and we were talking about some of the feedback they got about it from the people in Denver West up to the ski lodges, and they were advocating that you don't allow truck traffic on those highways on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because it blocked the traffic and they smell bad. Going to go skiing. Remind those people that's who brings your food and drink and supplies and you name it.
those are the California imports to
It is
Colorado.
exactly that, Mayor, exactly that.
Buzz, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Have any
Thank you
any
all.
questions for me?
Keep it
No,
weird.
thanks for what you're doing.
We appreciate the support. I mean, our board is, you know, of course, as you know, appointed by y'all, but we've got a great board going right now. We've always had great boards since I've been here, but our newest board members, they get it right away, which is really nice. Rivera and John Chris are really two good, positive new ones. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Bud.
Thank you.
It's good for all of us to have good people serving in those
I was
capacities.
proud of that support.
Thanks, Buzz.
Mr. President? Thanks, Buzz. And Mrs.
Okay,
Bowman?
who's in the hot seat now?
He calls you Mr. President.
I know.
He must have been his former boss or
He likes to
something.
rub
But you
that
didn't have
in
to
for
say
some
that
reason. I don't know. There's some weird joy. I don't know.
It's not what I called him when I worked for him.
I see.
Hey, you. Yeah, what's his name in the corner?
Said he was summoned.
Who was someone?
You all come in at the end of the time.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it does my heart good for you guys to be talking about regional things as you're discussing economic development. The High Ground, the Porch to Plains Corridor, the Texas Panhandle Regional Development Corporation have been long-term regional favorites of mine that the Regional Planning Commission has been involved in giving birth to. So congratulations for continuing that.
We heard you gave birth to Jarrett, too.
No, please.
Wow.
Is this your fault?
What was I with that?
No, I'm pleased to be here. It's an honor to be a component unit of the city of Amarillo. What a deal. Before I get to the point of very briefly talking about the local government corporation's budget numbers, which are very brief, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege, and as president of the LGC, to step back a little bit away from kind of the intricacies as to where we are with downtown development, kind of step out of the weeds, and just take this moment to personally thank you 5 electeds sitting around this table for what you have done over the last several years for our downtown development efforts. First of all, I want to thank you all for allowing this community to dream big and to put bold plans in place to address a very important part of this community, and that's the core of our community, downtown Amarillo. So thanks to the 5 of you for doing that. Thank you as well for your continuing commitment and support of the vision of the Catalyst kind of projects. The 3 projects together, the ballpark, the hotel, and the parking structure. So thank you for your continuing commitment to that vision. And in particular, I want to thank you for your patience with the LGC and with our development partner, Wallace Pajali, as we go about the business of turning that vision into reality. It's been a long road. It's been a winding road. There have been obstacles, and there will be obstacles in front of us before this is all said and done. You know, we're not quite ready. I'm not quite ready to suggest that we are to the point of rolling out the banner that says mission accomplished, because we're not quite there yet. But what I can tell you that it's my opinion that we do have now in place the fundamental building blocks or the puzzle pieces in place in order to get this deal done. And get this deal done within the parameters that you all set forth, the major one being without the need for a tax increase for the citizens of this community to support project development.
Would you say that again, please?
We can get this deal done without the necessity of increasing property tax rates for the folks in Amarillo for the purposes of this project. As was promised, as has been part of the concept from the very beginning, and the LGC continues to work very hard to honor that commitment. We could probably be a lot further along, you know, in the effort, had we been willing to do that, but that wasn't what this community wanted, and that's not what the commitment was, and so this is going to happen again without the necessity of a tax increase. And again, the building blocks are there. I think we're really to the point, we understand the how-to and how we're going to get there largely. It's about execution from this point forward. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting of the partners around this very table, and I suggested that, you know, if we can't execute the building blocks that are in place before us at this point in time, shame on us. I think we can, and we're looking forward to getting that done. In terms of the dollars and cents for the LGC, it's pretty simple here. We have budgeted in 14 revenue from the city to the LGC of $71,400 to be coupled with about $50,000 in carryover money from the previous year, giving the LGC funds available for 14 of $122,145 according to Michelle, right? We are, she is, projecting expenditures of about $84,000 for the year, which would leave us a balance at the end of next year of about $38,000. The huge majority of the budgeted expenditures for the upcoming year would be for legal expenses to allow the LGC to procure the appropriate legal counsel in terms of dealing with potential modifications to the existing lease and development agreement for the hotel and the parking structure, and similar kind of arrangements in agreements which have yet to be finalized for the impound of the baseball stadium. So again, thank you for the opportunity to serve on the LGC, and I will be happy to attempt to answer questions or defer those questions very quickly to Michelle and Jerry, or my two colleagues on the LGC board, Commissioner Sims Reed.
Well, no questions. I just want to thank you and members of the LGC board, including our two commissioners, for the countless hours you spend freely. You don't get anything for it except maybe a meal once in a while. Y'all have done extraordinary work over the last 2 years, and I don't know if we could afford you if we had money to pay.
Well, you can afford me. You couldn't afford Richard Brown. I mean, you know.
But you all have really, hung in there and done a magnificent job, and we will see the fruit of those labors at some point in time. And I just want to let you all know I appreciate all the hours you spent working.
Thank you. It's been a labor of love for me. I mean, this community and the heart of this community downtown's very important to me. It's been a major part of my life. I remember the first time I saw downtown Amarillo. My dad had moved us to the Texas Panhandle over at Pampa. We came over to see the big city, and I remember driving down Polk Street in our 1963 Chevrolet Biscayne. He couldn't afford an Impala, but his Biscayne. And to see the the people, the office workers spilling out of the Santa Fe building. There were still airmen on the street back then. The theaters, the office buildings. That was pretty high cotton for a kid from West Texas, and that was a great first impression of downtown. We don't expect downtown to be like it was in 1964 or 5, whenever that was. But there's a vibrant future for downtown Amarillo, or a vibrant future for downtown Amarillo.
Well, I think beyond what Lily indicated is that you were one of the forming partners in Center City. Worked on that for years, and it's always been a passion. One day he showed me his file on ballparks, and it took up most of the desk drawer. I think that's been sort of another passion of his. But I think your labor coming about. Thank you.
When did you start talking about revitalizing downtown? You, Gary Bittner. When, do you remember? How far back that was?
In the late 80s, I guess, around 1990.
Yeah.
Early on in the creation of the Center City.
Almost a quarter of a century ago.
Yeah, oh yeah, I had hair back then.
Oh, listen, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is review of your Amarillo Hospital District.
You should have a summary sheet of your hospital district budget. And we have that budget split into operating and tobacco. And the tobacco piece is mainly to recognize that you are still receiving tobacco settlement proceeds. And through your funding of Northwest, they are actually funding the tobacco-free umbrella contract. I guess the biggest change in this budget is your only revenue source is interest income. So as rates have come down, your interest income has come down. So your budget for next year and your revised estimate number for this year is $5.5 million. And I've actually left that budget flat. The money managers have estimated that number coming down to closer to $4 million, but I've left it flat, hoping, and I know they're trying to be conservative. There's just no reason to extend to pick up yield when rates are as low as they are.
But they were pretty damn low last year.
Yes, they were. You're right.
How low can you go? I mean, we have to start paying a bank to hold it.
That's why I'm hoping that they're conservative budgets. I have on the last page of that handout, we've done an analysis since the sale of the hospital.
Pardon me?
And as you can see, the revenue has come down, and it's based on the interest rates. But as far as what's been funded, that hasn't changed significantly over the years, so we haven't increased expenditures dramatically. So when your interest income, did you have a copy, was higher, those numbers went into corpus.
And the imaging care needs have not gone down?
They have not gone down, and that's one thing I wanted to point out. If you go down to the bottom half of your expenditures, your largest expenditure is $5.4 million, and that's your indigent care contract.
And that's contractually.
It's contractually. Now remember, we are prepaying that contract. If we weren't, that number would be closer to 7. So the district has recognized those prepayments have helped them save some money. The other largest expenditure is your pension contribution of $2 million. Remember, you still have a pension plan and you're still funding it.
Well, how long do you anticipate that that'll be funded?
Well, this $2 million gets you right at a 9-10 year amortization period. So the kind of targeting the end of the contract to have that. So not in the next few years, but pretty shortly after that, we'll probably see that contribution start to come down. Because there is a risk of overfunding it. Apparently once you get the money there, you can't take it back out. So you would lower your contributions to match those annuities that are left.
Only mistake we made.
Yeah, there's no death benefit on those pensions.
There's a surviving spouse benefit.
There is, that continues on.
Yes.
If they elected it.
Yeah, if they elected it. Right.
Which most obviously would have.
Okay.
And of
So
course-
it could go on a while.
Yeah.
Nothing new can come on, and hasn't been able to for quite a while. But
Since '96.
I remember having those meetings for those employees.
Your next, you have $1,479,000, which is your professional services. That split between operating tobacco is actually going to Northwest Texas, and then they in turn are funding tobacco-free Amarillo, Texas Tech, pediatrics, and then a small amount for public health. So they are funding at a higher level, $1,965,000.
Where is that on here? I missed that.
On your professional services, you have $1,399,000 and then $245,000 over in the tobacco column. The bulk of those expenditures is $1,479,000, which is going to Northwest Texas. There's also some other expenditures, your legal fees, your investment consultant fees. We are actually paying for a contractor now. There was a funded position over at Northwest in the HR department that was doing all the pension record work for us. That position is no longer there, so we've hired that person to work as a contractor for us to keep track of those records. So there's a few other things going through professional services.
Taxes on the clinic. Why are we subject to every one taxes
Taxes,
on the clinic?
That's on the wire.
because it's being
What is that?
implemented.
The wire?
I don't know what that is.
What is it? Well, of course, here again, that's in essence leased out, but it's being done for profit, so that makes the property taxable.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's not the hospital district.
Yeah.
We've heard in the past that some of this is going towards dental, but I'm seeing zero on here.
It used to be.
Well,
It's
at one
under
time we
tobacco
used to
funds.
fund dental separately. You actually done it two different ways. At one time you funded it through Universal, I think, and maybe even through Amarillo College at one point. And then you bought that facility over there and had a dental clinic operating in it. Now that facility is being leased. So we're not actually funding the dental operations. It is being leased by a dentist.
Yeah, that came out.
So we're not expending here.
No, not anymore. That is the change. And Dr. Stafford could not be here today, but he will be here next Tuesday. He's the chairman of the.
Tell him to come prepared.
I will.
We have lots of.
And had it not been for Dean Frigo and his staff, this would have been a nightmare because I was chairman of the hospital district after the hospital sold, and we had to deal with a lot of things that were contentious.
Yes, you do. And a lot of requests too.
And the dental clinic came out of that particular era.
Well, that's when the pediatric services came out too.
Yeah, that went under my bailiwick.
Oh, okay.
No, I
Because
just
the big
discovered those
boo-boo
things
was
that
the
needed to be
pension
done.
fund, just, and Watson Wyatt, Worldwide, or whatever the hell their name was. I mean, just all-faced lied to us.
Well, it's not an easy plan to administer. We actually hire an actuary to do all of those.
That's what Watson Wyatt is. It's
Yes,
supposed to be good at it.
well, it's not an easy plan to administer. Our actuary would like to simplify that process in the next few years if we can simplify those calculations.
And of course, nobody anticipated interest rates would go practically
Go
zero.
south.
Because by this time down the road, this could have easily been, well, I don't know, $600,000-$700,000.
We're roughly 2.5% return today on that money. And what was it?
But the time we sold the hospital, probably 7.
Well, I remember that first year Dean had them invest in some treasury notes, 6.5%.
At what?
6.5%.
Treasuries.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so market money would be more than that. And that's why you see the corpus had gone up and now it's beginning to go down. It's entirely.
They're not making any interest.
Any questions on the hospital district budget?
Not the budget.
Future actions on these three budgets we've seen today. The Amarillo Economic Development Corp budget will come back on September the 3rd for action. The hospital district, I think, will come back next week for action. Your local government corporation, that is actually a contractual arrangement, so you won't see that as a separate budget action if you do that. All right, that takes us then to the fun part, which is a very quick, very quick presentation of the 2012 actuarial audit.
Speaking of actuaries.
The Firefighters Relief and Retirement Fund, again, this is your local pension. Firefighters pay into it direct, city pays into it direct. It's governed by a local board. It was created under a Texas statute back in the 50s. When did Telfer come through? 50s? No, 57, something like that? Yeah.
So, Michelle, may I ask you a question? When you talk about actuaries, are you taking all the CPAs that are serious and not very exciting and dull and kind of separating them out and putting them in one?
There's a fine line between an accountant and an actuary.
I think,
If an
If you have
actuary,
the accountant doing the actuarial presentation, you know it's gonna put you.
if an actuary had a personality, they'd
So
be
thank
working
you.
for
I've
the
been in trouble for
IRS.
my actuary jokes over the last month and a half. And this is actually an audit of the actuarial work that's done on the plan. So it's an actuary looking at what the actuary.
And I couldn't even bring myself to call it audit, because I know an audit's something else.
Yeah, I'm all buzzed.
All I want to know is if Michelle's reviewed it, and if it's okay, it's okay.
It's okay. The city hired this actuary, and they came in and redid the calculation, the numbers all checked out, and they reviewed the actuarial assumptions. And they did, of course, have some recommendations, but most of those recommendations were already included in our actual report. We used John Kreider for the Fireman's Fund. And then 2 of the recommendations they had on an overtime analysis, your fire department, your fire chief had been working on that during the last year, and they're actually putting some controls in place. The way they had it set up with senior staff closer to retirement, the more overtime you work can affect your retirement benefits. So really the items that were brought up had all been addressed.
And I would point out, joking aside, that about 4 years ago, we amended that statute to require an actuarial audit of the actuary. That's due diligence, and you know many pensions, you know the story there, how they're bankrupting new governments. And those actuarial assumptions, there's a lot of dollars behind those assumptions. So it's...
Well, and one assumption out of line can really affect everything. So it's good to have a fresh set of eyes reviewing that for us and making sure those calculations are being done correctly.
Well, I know we're very diligent, so I appreciate that.
This will be back up.
And the farmers keep good tax on their
The thing I never
plans.
understood about all this is when they start picking a discount rate. Well, everything seems so rigid, and then you pick this but just from like out of the air. You know, and so it's like, I don't know.
Now, that is one thing that actually that we
Black
reviewed
magic and sorcery, you stir the pot,
was,
numbers come out.
please, because we do have the money manager review that discount
Do you
rate.
really?
And does this work?
In our OPEB trust, the money managers propose a discount rate, and then the actuaries accept, reject, modified, then build their. But those any number of those things, how long is the average person gonna live? Will healthcare really increase at 21% per year compounded for the average life of the, the string that goes to these things is, I won't say it, it's incredible.
And Michelle has checkers checking the checkers all the time.
The checker's checking.
And it's a planning tool.
They do.
Absolutely, and all kidding aside, had some of this been being done, on the bigger national scale for a longer period of time, some of these pension surprises and these health plans surprises, what we now call unfunded liabilities, whether they would have been addressed or not, they would have been out on the table. And in the case of us and what we're in charge of administering, we would have been obligated to make you aware of those. Of course, this body has been not only aware, but very active. There are places that got off in the ditch, a lot of Detroit stuff, the General Motors, California. So it serves a very valid purpose, and you can always, tweak any one assumption and make tremendous changes in the outcome. But if nothing else, at the end of the day, you do have that liability. It does extend for a period of time, and are you prepared to fund it? So it's good. And it's great for jokes when you've got a big group of people being too serious about their numbers.
Down to decimal points. And we do this review every 5 years.
Every 5 years?
Every 5 years. They do a study every 2 years, but
Yes,
state law
on the
requires
3rd
it.
of September.
Yeah, in hospital.
Right.
Okay, good job, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
your staff.
Well, Mayor, if we could, I'd like to jump into the agenda, work our way through that pretty quickly. With your permission, I won't come back at the end. Under item A5, consider future agenda items. I do have some stuff I would like to briefly go over with you. Okay? Let's go. Item number 1, approval of the minutes from last week's meeting.
They look correct to me.
Item number 2, ordinance 7430, first reading of an ordinance annexing a tract of land in section 65 and 38, Randall County. This is the first reading of the ordinance. This is not your first action on this particular piece of property, and we're now really only one more action away from having this one closed.
We did the one to the south of it already, didn't we? A few weeks ago?
No,
No.
you definitely, it's the
No.
same piece. We did a different action on this piece.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I thought we skipped.
No, we haven't skipped.
All right.
Item number 3, 7414, second and final. This was the clarification of the definition of revenues subject to the franchise fee. You acted on this actually a little over a month ago, but this type of ordinance gets published and it sits, and after that expires, it comes back to your final action. Per the charter.
Okay.
Okay, this one I'm going to pass out. This came in last night. This is talking about calling your special election on the charter amendment. Last week we began with 22. We came down to 21 amendments. Further discussion by the City Commission, we amended one. Those changes have been made. Those are in item number 4, the backup material for that. This action today results in the ordering of the special election for Tuesday, November 5, 2013 on these amendments. This handout, this came in yesterday afternoon at some point. When did it come in?
Yesterday afternoon, about 4:15.
Yeah, so, it was not signed.
Oh,
It came in from a group calling itself Petition Amarillo.
Petition Amarillo.
Yes.
Was this the one that Mr. Cossey's been talking about?
Not signed.
Not signed.
Had mine back.
Yeah, I don't read.
If they don't want to put the name on it.
Anonymous. That's fine.
Any questions on the 21 as they are stated as a result of your actions last week? Need for further discussion, review? We do again have the PowerPoint that we can dance through each of the 21 should we choose.
I think we learned a lot through that discussion. I thought it was very thorough. And the input from the IS was good. We acted on those things.
But they're correct under tab 4.
Under tab 4, they are correct.
Okay. I think everybody's good moving forward. Anybody have any other changes they want to make?
Well, this will be the final shot at it. This puts it on the ballot.
All in, all done today.
It's fine. We made legitimate changes last week, and they were well thought out.
They did a printer after the vote today, in the newspaper. I thought it was
And nothing new that's come up and outside of this,
That's correct, sir.
you know.
I thought it was good that we were inspired in one change
Your brother.
by the participants out there. That's right.
Where would you like to move to item 5, or do we have further discussion on
No,
this?
well, I'm going to read them and then
I
I'll
think we
have
better
discussion.
move.
Item 5, this is the second and final, as is item 6, item 7, item 8. This is the wrap-up on the public improvement districts, respectively Brennan, Greenways, Quail Creek, Vineyards. I do believe the mayor abstained from the vote on Greenways last week, and we'll do the same this week.
Okay.
It'll be the rules.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have to do that, do I have to be the mayor on that, because I'm not pro tem? Okay.
Okay, so this is.
Sorry, what's that?
Commissioner Reeves, as mayor pro tem, will call item 6.
Number 6.
Brian, okay, so.
I was reading it.
do we go- Then we go back to our normal one. Okay.
So,
Then you go on to number 7.
and then, so you'll do 6, though.
You second it.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll do 7.
Yeah, you'll do 7.
Yeah.
Staying up in the order, you're staying mayor pro tem. Okay.
Item number 9, resolution calling bond election for park improvements, Amarillo Recreation Complex. This, of course, follows the presentation and discussion that you had received last week. I would hand out and ask that you substitute this resolution. Bond council continued to work on this over the weekend, and there's some minor tweaks in there. First of which I would like to call your attention to, and Michelle will back me up if this gets complicated. The project at $30.9 million, that is the part of the project that is the bond money, that's the construction deposit. The resolution is styled to issue the bond in an amount not greater than $31,500,000. The difference therein being those are your issuance costs and other related items that go into any bond issue that you do. That does not change what you're putting in as far as the project. So roughly 30.9 is the construction deposit, and there's about a 6.3 million private contribution that would take the totality of the project to 37.2. I've had very few questions asked as a result of last week. One of those, though, that I have been asked, and I think it's a good one, is, well, so if something happens or doesn't happen at the right period of time, does that mean the city's just going to reach into its pocket? Well, the answer is no. Your bond amount is capped and is finite.
Right.
So the amount that you set in resolution today is the amount of bonded debt that you will take for this project.
31.5.
Yeah, 31.5.
Can we talk a little bit about this?
Yes, sir.
There is not a thing in that project that is not consistent with the park master plan.
Not correct.
Because the implication has been that this is a big surprise and it hadn't been discussed, and this has been discussed for years.
Yes.
Correct.
And it's just a question of how ultimately it's implemented in the economies of scale and how the city can maybe spend infrastructure monies once instead of at 12 or 13 different locations all over town.
Yes.
Right? So I keep hearing this feedback from people and individuals who say that this is a big surprise. How can anybody who's following these issues with the Parks and Rec Board feel like this is a big surprise?
Well, Neil, your Parks Board over the years has looked at many of these projects separately.
Right.
And seen the need for these. The need for many of these is in your comprehensive plan. The Park Master Plan, most recently updated in 2012, identifies each and every, and in fact, this will not in and of itself satisfy all of the identified needs in the Park Master Plan. And your point about the economy of scale is very well made. All of your studies and your metrics that, a community your size needs this, that, and the other, those are great, appropriate, you need those. There's a reason they're standards, they work. But those then don't talk about where do you put this, how do you put it. My opinion as a manager, putting all of these improvements in a single location does do that for you. You've got one major entry road that you have to accommodate. You've got one major utility feed that you have to accommodate. All of your interior roads now serve more than one function. I don't build a road over here that stops at one ball field and move a few miles away and build a separate road, a separate utility field that serves the next set of ball fields. So in terms of the economies of being able to put these things together, it's huge. As a parent, and I think we heard a little of this last week, but I've got children at home that are 3 years apart. Well, that typically means on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, I'm one place with one child and wife's another place with another child. Even if mine are a boy and a girl, if I had both boys and both were playing baseball, one would be one place, one would be in another. This allows those families to stay together as families when they come and do theirs. And that's actually something that we hear quite frequently. You guys have got nice soccer fields, but one's up here to the northeast, one's to the northwest, southeast. I mean, they're scattered all over town. You also have a luxury, I think, with the property out here that we don't have elsewhere. This develops about 110 acres, roughly, of that facility to go with the acreage that's already developed, which is just under 40. You're still left with 300 plus acres more that you can continue to build and to have that economy and that synergy all in one place. So very, very well said. I appreciate that. That's important. And I can go grab the latest park plan and flip it open, and y'all can have that available to you.
Well, the other thing that I think is important here is we're not closing any current facility. This is allowing them to be better used, to be not overused. We're keeping all of those. The other thing is, besides just not traveling around town for your kids, think of how many less times a family will have to take off to Dallas or Wichita Falls or all these other places and be able to stay here close to home. I think. And it began back in, Jim and I heard it in '04 constantly from groups, but we never addressed it.
Each one of these entities that's going to be served by this project has hit on us, as I said last week, one-on-one at a time.
And we saw an overwhelming support with 3 people that had questions. 2, I think, were pretty much resolved last week. The questions they asked were pretty much resolved. And then I would guess there was 100 people in the room, all in support, although they didn't all speak. But
Well, when Edmund last week that asked about the money they're raising, and William and Trevor Ware and Davis said that they would know a lot. Their goal was by November, so voters might know what's in the pot by the time they vote. And the other thing is, there's some very real questions about M&O, and just you're working on it.
We are. That's a good point. M&O is probably actually easiest to capture on the contained facilities, like the aquatic facility. And certainly there was significant effort expended several years ago to work on that. Those are all being updated. They're going to get better because of the designs that are in play today versus the design that was looked at back when you first saw it. There are some M&O numbers that are coming to us on the indoor deal. When you look at the fields, that's a function of how are they used and how are they charged. If they all fill up immediately, will certainly have a better grasp of that. Would point out, though, these are recreational and athletic facilities. While they carry a user fee, those user fees never have been designed to cover 100% of those costs. Cities, and this city especially, provides park activities, recreation and athletic activities, as a function of something that we feel like we're supposed to do for our public. That's a need that they have. We don't have a turnstile at the corner of like a school park, so that you pay as you come in to use whatever particular feature that you're using. Certainly the user fees are important, but they're not designed to cover 100% of it. I would contend maybe you wouldn't even want to go that direction. Talk about, potential inaccessibility. That's just.
I think the most that I've heard from different people was the idea that, it's too far to go from anywhere in Amarillo. And they said, well, it's not far. I mean, no place in Amarillo is far from anywhere else.
Well, I think that point was made and accepted by that person, because they said, well, somebody's got to travel.
Yeah, and I did have somebody mention, with that pool, we didn't have to water, we had to conserve water. I said, don't worry, we'll conserve water, not to worry about that. So,
Pools don't.
They don't fill up every day.
Water near like sometimes it's perceived.
And then it's not outside.
And certainly not like your watering that's going to be required on some of the athletic fields.
Yeah,
Is that decision when they get with their artificial?
Well,
That's just part of cost.
the current budget,
Sorry.
the current component budget, your 4 north baseball fields, so these are the 4 fields that are contiguous to the existing 6 that are up there. Those are grass fields. Right now, and this of course is a scalable opportunity that becomes necessary, but right now the 8 youth softball fields, which are also baseball fields for a certain age group, those 8 have synthetic surface on them.
Good.
We're really learning a lot about synthetics. We're fortunate that West Texas did what they did. That's a chance to look at it. I don't know if y'all have been out there. There's actually 3 different types of synthetic surface out there in that complex, depending on what they're trying to do with it and how they want it to come out. Synthetics obviously do save a tremendous amount of water. They are not a maintenance-free field, as you might first presume. It actually requires a pretty sophisticated piece of equipment to keep the BBs down underneath it, so that you have they have a, and I don't know how to say it, there's a machine that's a raker and a machine that's a poker that puts that stuff back down where it goes.
Makes the grass stand up.
A raker and a poker.
Yeah, no, there's a much more technical term, and I'll try to have that before we speak again, but the final thing about a synthetic field is they don't last forever. So from the day you start playing on it, you're working towards the day that you'll replace the field.
Well, I think we need to be mindful that this initiative is truly a community initiative, because people from different disciplines and athletics came together at their own doing, and maybe they studied the parks plan, and I'm sure they did. And they decided they wanted to do something about it. It was initiated by them, and I hope that they will continue doing education if it's between now and election time, if that's what we choose to do, because it's going to take a lot of time to educate the public about what's going on, and people expect that, I suppose. But I think that it's good to have a public-private partnership initiated by a citizen group. They initiated this.
And then they came together, and so I do respond to the newspaper's question about Blue Ribbon Committee with that they have actually formed their own committees that certainly would represent anything we could pull together in Blue Ribbon Committee, all with interest in this and desire and support and the ability to carry it further. And then to have them unify under one group was just,
right. We
after
haven't
we
done
heard
that.
we even heard 4 different
I don't
aquatic
have
groups
kids
sort of
anymore.
not concluding the same thing. Now they're all concluding the same thing. The baseball groups are. I just think it's a
win-win for
win-win.
them.
And it was, 1978 or so since we've done this, so.
Other than the climate.
So that indicates about 50,000 plus, more than that. More than 50,000 people have moved, or our city's increased in that size without responding. We got to respond.
If I'd still had kids that were playing sports, I would have been in the audience.
You ain't a kid.
I'd like to make 2 points if I may. One, we just point out to you at the end of section 3 of that ordinance, right there on the first short page, right after the ballot text, which is in all capital letters in the center of the page, notice there's a direction there that by passing this resolution, they're designating that this bond issue shall appear on the ballot ahead of the 21 charter amendments. This will be at the top of your city ballot. See that paragraph, the ballot relating to this election shall place the bond proposition as the first item prior to any other items the city may submit to the voters. That's the last part of section 3 there. The second point I would make, we have 2 items on your agenda today. If you pass both of them, you would be having a special election for both charter amendments and for this bond issue. We remind you that under Texas ethics laws, you cannot use any city dollar, facility, paper, resource to advocate either for or against either of these propositions. You are free to do it on your own time. There is no problem using a city facility as a backdrop. If you were to go outside and do an interview with City Hall behind you or the park entrance behind you, that's not a problem. This is for your protection. The Ethics Commission is very strict. Even a fairly benign statement such as, let's do it for the kids, is a violation of the state ethics law. That is an advocacy statement. Because some people would say, let's count our dollars. You see, it becomes an advocacy point of view thing. The words that come out of this City Hall from now through Election Day regarding either one of these propositions, whether it's from staff or from officials, must be coldly calculated, objective information. The bond election is for X dollars to be used for Y facilities. And Sonia, to her credit, has prepared an excellent press release that has a good background and presents these facts in a non-advocacy type manner. So just for your own protection, so there are no sideshows to this upcoming election, please make statements in support of these ballots only outside of this building. And that's just the quickest, easiest, safest way to do it. Do not use a city phone. Do not use your city email. Do not use a city computer. Do not use city letterhead. If a PAC is formed in support of these and they want you to appear on the commercial, that's great. It'll be on the commercial. Just don't film it inside this building, please.
What about if a civic club's having a meeting at the Civic Center and we appear there and talk about it in the Civic Center?
It's questionable, Mayor. Again, I'll admit I'm giving you very
They're paying
conservative.
rent to the
city.
Mayor, I'm giving you very conservative advice. The best advice I can give you is do not use any city facility to do advocacy for
Just
or
wanna
against
ask.
any
But
proposition.
you can do education. You
Well,
can say what it is.
And let's
Right.
take the other side of that. This group is asked to appear at a civic club that doesn't meet in a city facility, and very few actually do. They're free then.
Have at it.
Yes.
Like I say, the rule is stop and ask yourself, before someone hands you a microphone, stop and check yourself. Am I in a city building? Is this a city dollar? No, I'm in my own place of business. Have at it, folks. Say what you want to say. If you're at a civic club, have at it. Say what you want to say. This ethics rule is simply to keep, as you saw last week, not everyone's going to be thrilled with this bond.
Sure.
Exactly.
And so it's not right that their tax dollars would get used to provide you a pulpit to make statements, to promote it. And so just keep that balance in mind, that you're an elected official. When you're in this building, you represent all of the people. When you're in a city facility, you are on duty and you represent all the people. When you are away from the city facilities, you are free from that, and you may speak your conscience then.
And if the press titles us with our title, that's fine.
Yes, that's right. And that doesn't cost, there's no city resource involved.
Gotcha.
Some letters on a screen or under a photo caption.
Okay. Thank you. The final point on that resolution is it does allow you to issue bonds at a period not to exceed 30 years. The question was asked last week, what would we do? Typically, we do 20. This gives us flexibility as we try to adjust this. Also, you're not obligated to issue this bond as a single bond. You can issue it in serial components, but even in that case, you don't go above the total principal amount stated here.
Okay, so who's doing this one?
Me.
And you will add the amounts to this. After
Well,
I
I'll
read it,
just
you'll
make
do it.
reference. I'm sure there's copies of the new resolution out on the table.
It will be.
Should there not be?
I don't know if there are or not.
No, there's not, but there will be.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
it is a little bit different than the one that's in there.
I was like, operation said not to expand any city resources, so since we don't get any city resources. We would have our own telephone. It would be hard to expend.
This-
One of you has an office here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And a travel account.
Yeah, I pay for my own.
It has a zero balance in it.
Mayor, in the interest of time, I'd like to move on.
Let's move on. How about
Yeah,
it?
we're running out of time
Item
here.
number 10, appointments, boards, and commissions. The first is Canadian River Municipal Water Authority. Former Commissioner Robert Keys has served the city and served us very well for the last several years on that board. Certainly appreciate his service. He has asked for this to be the opportunity for him to step back. I believe that we do have a gentleman who has been vetted and is able and willing to take this should you choose, and that would be Mr. Lenny Sadler. And then for the Texas Panhandle Centers, Patty Ladd, would ask that that be a reappointment. That's the board that used to be Texas MHMR, and continuation of service on that board is very helpful.
That was Robert.
Roberts is reminding.
Well, so
Which
who's
is
making?
Lenny
Sadler.
He
Okay.
didn't want to be reappointed.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Consent agenda is quite brief today. You have on here 3 simple dedications and acceptances. Water line easement, public utility easement, and drainage channel. Drainage easement. Actually, that needs to be simple, it's a small piece. Questions on your agenda as presented?
No.
Okay. 244. I'm going to continue to. A couple of things I want to talk to you, and one of them, you received some information last week about this AMP study that's going on at your consolidated mail facility here in Amarillo. We're continuing to research that, and I think I'll probably have some additional information to bring forth to you in the next week or two that we can discuss. There's some competing information out there that's not exactly the same, so I really, if y'all don't mind, like an opportunity to be sure that what I give you is the best I can get. So I'll continue to work on that.
That's the change of the postal.
Process.
This is the one.
Because there's a lot
Mail
of word on the
processing.
street. It is coming to the surface.
But there's a lot more information that after you and I talked about it, Jim, I talked to Jared, and he asked that we give it a little more time to really
Sure.
discern it. Because it's
Well,
not, we don't have the whole story.
Working off the right info.
Hmm?
But it's slowly bubbling to the surface. I don't think that's why the knowledge or awareness of it is widespread yet, but it's moving
Well,
in that direction.
the one full page, literally a full page advertisement taken out in the news, I think 2 Sundays ago. There's quite a bit of stuff on the internet now about it. I'm trying to get some documents actually from the United States Postal Service that I'm looking for. This is actually handled out of Fort Worth, but we're still working there.
I thought it was just
This is the news one.
Speaking in calling CPS. How about now?
Wasn't UPS their number 1 customer?
Or number 1 rock.
Well, I think it's also customer. A lot of us, shipping issues, it's a sign of UPS goes to the postal service.
Every street in the state.
Okay, the next item, if I could tell you the little that I know, and it's little, and then ask your guidance as to whether you would like to see something on your agenda, and if you do, I need it on next week. And that would be this discussion. broke late Friday here. It was in a lot of the papers over the weekends, where the Texas Department of Transportation has developed a program that they call the Turn Back program. And the turn back is where a road that is a state-owned and thus obligation of the state road would be just a sign given, granted, gifted, however you want to phrase it, abandoned to a city or conceivably a county. Now, they've drawn some arbitrary cutoffs. This is not supposed to go to cities under 50,000 unless, of course, they're contained within a metro area. There is, to my knowledge, or rephrase that, to my receipt, I don't have a map of what particularly that might be in Amarillo, but I'll give you some examples.
Have you asked for that map?
Yes,
And it has not been provided?
I do not have it at this time.
That's interesting.
It is, but the more I spent most of yesterday on this, and the more I thought about it, the more I've decided the map's irrelevant. This is a policy question. This is a public policy question. TxDOT proposes that by giving up these, and it's just under 1,900 road miles, so it's 1,897 to be exact, by them giving these road miles back to units of local government, TxDOT then has $165 million worth of expense that it no longer has to bear, which at least allegorically looks like it'll be assigned into other needs that TxDOT has. Well, you know, the simple public policy question here then is this simple. If it's costing them $165 million to maintain these 1,900 miles, and they no longer do it, if the localities choose to maintain those 1,900 road miles, then guess what? It's going to cost at least $165 million.
And you don't get a fuel tax for road maintenance like TxDOT collects.
It's a backdoor, it's a backdoor tax.
Cost transfer.
Yeah, and I would say it's an extremely bold-faced, unfunded mandate. Now, TxDOT, you know, contends there are benefits to the local jurisdiction. You can control driveways, speed limits, parking, and road closures. Well, you know what? All of your regional TxDOTs have always been phenomenally cooperative to work with us to do any and all of those things. So to the map, you know, think of today Amarillo Boulevard from east to west across the entirety of Amarillo. That's a state right-of-way that I presume fits into their category. All I know about their category is that anything that's a non-access controlled is eligible for consideration. I don't think that means every one of them, but
Washington Street, probably.
Yeah.
Washington Way.
Swansea.
Western Street,
Western Street,
all the way to
Swansea is not access controlled, but is a state right-of-way.
Part of 10th Street.
And we'll get the Pete Gilman
Pete
Memorial
Gilman
Highway.
Memorial Highway.
That's state. Airport Boulevard. That's actually a state spur.
Oh my gosh.
So I was really focused on the maps, and then the more I thought about it, the more you know, yes, I'd like to see it, but that's arguing on the wrong side of the deal. So my question to y'all, at a public policy level, are we even willing to discuss and consider accepting this?
No.
No.
Okay.
We want to
What I
know
would
where
like,
the money is.
what I would like to do is put a resolution on your agenda next week with pretty strong terms that
Please.
we don't want this to move forward.
That's
The
why
next
we
the next
moved
two
it.
steps, which are already in motion, presuming I knew which way we were going to go today. The next two steps, in contact with, or in working to be in contact with all of your local legislative delegation, have received comments, you know, very similar to what we think. Our lobby group, Black Ridge, started on this yesterday morning about 8:05 and is working their way through that. The Texas Transportation Commission meets next Thursday, August the 29th in Austin. I would like to have the mayor in attendance at such meeting. This item is not posted for action, it's posted for discussion. I just don't see the sense of letting this out of the gate far enough that what we then do is have to start arguing over this road, that road, the other road.
Putting earrings and lipstick on the pig.
Yes, sir. And again, I've received very good support from our delegation, and we'll keep doing that. Part of what's going on in Austin this week is, they're finally done with all the special sessions, so everybody's gone. They're all trying to wrap out their summers and get lined up for college, for school, for their kids, and they're all starting to filter back into the Capitol.
So it's kind of interesting this came out now, when we can't get any answers or response from Austin.
Yeah, so we got it in the afternoon mail, so we'd already posted your agenda.
On Friday.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm surprised they didn't wait till the holiday. A little bit more distraction. I kind of would be interested to know where that idea came. Whose idea was that? I think that'd be interesting to know.
Well, there was also something that said they would cut their budget $100 million. The ledge said that. And so maybe this is in response to cutting it.
Passing it on down to local government again.
That's what they're doing to higher
Well,
education.
a major, you heard Buzz talk about this, a major goal of the state of Texas, certainly under Governor Perry, has been economic development. And the state's really, truly done a lot for economic development. But to take nearly 1,900 miles of state-owned roads and say, we're not going to do them anymore, if you want to do it, you do it. Well, you've got now two choices, road infrastructure that's failing, or alternatively, we really only have two ways to pay for roads, and that's sales tax, and sales tax is a reasonably quantifiable and finite number, or
Property tax.
property taxes. So to make that up, if Amarillo's portion of this was only $1 million, that's 1.1 something cents that you would add merely to maintain the status quo. That doesn't allow you to improve it. Doesn't allow you to expand it. That just leaves you where you mean.
Just
Oh, we had to get back on
Yes, sir.
conversations over about
That's just what they're doing in community colleges. They're just passing the cost along to the local taxpayer.
It could be more than $1 million.
And I just say that merely as an example. Again, I don't want to get to the point of arguing over road miles. I don't see the
And
benefit.
then politically, when that does occur, who's going to get the roads? Well, it's not going to be the people with a lot of legislative influence. It's going to be the people who don't have legislative influence, are the ones who are going to find that they have 7 roads in their community. Everybody else is.
There's good consensus to put this on the future agenda.
It'll be back Tuesday with a resolution. You'll have it in your packets. Come prepared to discuss, and we'll follow up with the AMP study at the post office as quick as I'm able to get additional information.
City budget.
Well, it absolutely ties into the city budget.
Which is on the agenda.
Like your
Yeah,
35 cents.
Obvious. They could have at least been tricky.
Okay, I don't know that we have time for any closed session. At the moment, I do need you, if I could get you to come back for at least one topic after you finish the meeting today, the agenda Brian took. Okay. We're recessing to the following meeting.
Okay, we're going executive.